Before I introduce the panel to you, I would like to make a couple of quick announcements. First, I'd like to thank Mike Reed, the Park District Board President, standing in the back, and Mark Johnson, Executive Director, and Crystal is the one who makes us all happy for. She makes sure we have the mics and everything set up. Thank you. So provide communication Skokie Park District facilities and setting up. If you're not already a member of Skokie Voice, the membership table is set up in the back. Bonnie, wave. You can stop by and see her. And also I wanted to remind everybody, and you may not know yet, on November the 6th, we're having our second annual meet and greet. And this is going to be a family fun event. We're going to have some merchants here doing pottery wheels and fun exercises, recycle art projects. So come, bring your kids, have some snacks in the afternoon. And I'd also like to, at this time, before I introduce the panel, I'd like to thank Daniel Best, State Representative, 17th District, for being here tonight with us. And also in Springfield on the Appropriation Committee for Elementary and Secondary Education. At this time, I would like to introduce our panel of superintendents. To my left is Dr. Francis McKay from School District 68. Dr. Quentin Shepard from School District 69. Dr. Cindy Whitaker, Fairview South District 72. Dr. James Shaw from East Prairie School District 73. Filling in tonight for Dr. Kate Donovan, she was unable to be with us tonight, is Dana Otto, the principal of Middleton School. And we have representing District 219, Niles Township High Schools, Dr. Nancy Ngata. And for Evanston Skokie School District 65, we have Dr. Harvey Murphy. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our moderator, Gary Delango, for the night.
Good evening. As Lisa said, my name is Gary Delango. School, by definition, an institution for the instruction of children or people under college age. Well, we all know schools are so much more. Yet how much do we really know about these fine institutions? We trust that our children will not only be safe and educated, but will also be well-rounded. We send our children to school not only for the core curriculum, but for the extra activities such as fine arts and sports. The socialization is also an integral part of their education. I moved to Skokie because of the reputation of the schools in the park districts and for the diversity. I willingly pay taxes for these services. Tonight we are lucky enough to have each Skokie school district represented by the respective administrators. We shall compare our districts to that of our neighboring districts from pre-K up through the high school level. Skokie Voice hopes that by the end of this evening you have a better understanding of how the school system and how they work together for our children's future success in life. So let's begin. We will start the evening by directing questions to the superintendents that were generated by our survey. Upon completion, we shall open the microphone to the audience with questions or comments. If you want to ask a question but don't want to speak in this public forum, please write your comments down with your contact information, and we'll make sure that the administrators get back to you with the answers. Okay, we are doing this in no specific order, so I'm just going to start having the superintendent start with the questions. Dr. Shaw, I'll start with you. Have increasing revenues affected the quality of education that your district is able to provide, and by what means does your district preserve important programs?
At this point in our budget reviews and such, we have not been.
I'm sorry. That's my fault. I'm going to start having the superintendent read a general statement about each district. I apologize. Dr. Shaw.
Thank you. So we were asked, as part of preparing for this evening, to talk a little bit about the demographics of our school, and so that's what I'm going to present to get started this evening. In District 69, we have 3 schools, Madison, Edison, and Lincoln. The total number of students in our school district is 1,734. The number of languages spoken in District 69 totals 55
I'm Nancy Angata, I'm the superintendent of District 219. Most of you know that that's the high school district servicing grades 9 through 12 at Niles North, Niles West, and Niles Central. Niles West is at Hopeton, right down the street, and Principal Kane Osborne is here today from Niles West. Just wave so they know who you are. And Niles North, off the Eames Expressway at Old Orchard, and Principal Ryan McTay is here tonight as well from Niles North. And Niles Central, some of you may not know about that, that's our alternative learning high school, where we service special education students, and Assistant Superintendent Pete Marcello of Special Ed and Student Services is here tonight as well. I'm very happy to talk about our student population. 6 out of 10 of our students come from homes where a language other than English is spoken. They speak more than 80 languages and dialects, the most common being Spanish, Urdu, Assyrian, and Korean. In fact, we're servicing 31 languages in our ELL program, and that's why we translate into several different languages at many of our live events. 5% of our total population, just under 4,800 students, is ELL. 30% free and reduced lunch, and 15% are special education. I'm also happy to report that 7 out of 10 students, or 70%, choose to participate in an extracurricular activity, whether it be athletics, fine arts, or one of our 75 clubs. We also have more than 20 athletic teams. Just to remind the group tonight, for information about District 219, please go to our website. Our board's 5-year strategic plan is there, as well as the board's 5 goals. There is a board document on every one of those, a video highlighting what we're doing, how we're doing it, what it costs, and when it will be realized. That's a great opportunity for you to know what's happening in 219. And finally, like tonight, we offer 3 other town hall meetings a year at the school district. On November 3rd, the Parent Advisory Council will have a town hall meeting to direct the administration and ask questions specifically as it relates to curriculum instruction. We also will host on April 17th with all of my colleagues here, the Niles Township Youth Coalition, which community members can ask specific questions about the social and socio-emotional decisions that are made by our students. And finally, I also host the Superintendent's Financial Advisory Committee every spring, where all the parents from every parent group are invited, including business officials from the community, to give feedback on the annual development of the budget. Thank you very much for having this event tonight, and I look forward to answering some more questions.
Okay. I hope you can hear me. I'm Cindy Whitaker. I'm Cindy Whitaker. I'm the superintendent at Fairview School District 72 in Skokie. Our student population is roughly 650 students. We've seen a significant increase over the past several years. Our students come to us from many different countries, as you'll hear from the rest of the panel. Currently, we have more than 45 different languages spoken within our building. We are a one-school K-8 district, so our students travel through all the grades in one building. For that, we feel very lucky as we get to see children grow from being 5-year-olds to 12 and 13-year-olds before we pass them off to the high school. We've also seen a rise in our students qualifying for free and reduced lunch. We're just under 20% at this point in time. Special education students make up about 10% of our population, and we're currently serving about 20% of our population are in our ELL programs. So I, like the rest of my colleagues, look forward to answering some questions tonight and hope to inform you more about the work that we're doing at our schools.
Hi, I'm Dana Otto. I'm representing Kate Donegan for Skokie School District 73 and a half. I have a little prepared there. District 73 and a half is proud to be a district that provides a comprehensive educational program based on academic excellence. We strive very hard to give students a well-rounded education program and develop skills in all of their areas. We have a wonderful fine arts program and an award-winning band, as well as outstanding musical performances. 73 and a half has a supportive Board of Education, parent community, and values the positive relationships between students, parents, and staff. We have 3 schools: Elizabeth Meyer, which is pre-K, John Middleton is grades 1 through 5, and Oliver McCracken Middle School is grades 6 through 8. Our district is located in the southeast corner of Skokie. We're proud of our diverse student population of 1,044 students. There are nearly 40 different languages spoken in our district, and we are approximately 25% low income. We have a strong attendance rate. Our average class sizes range from 20 to 26 students. And we're very proud of our highly qualified staff, of which 66% of them have master's degrees or above. And I too look forward to answering your questions.
Hello everyone, I'm Fran McTague from District 68. We have 4 schools in our district, 3 neighborhood elementary schools and 1 junior high. That would be Devonshire Elementary, Highland Elementary, James Stenson Elementary, and Old Orchard Junior High, and all of our students graduated and moved on to Niles North High School. We are also quite diverse, with over 56 languages represented in the district, with 14% of our student body receiving services through the ELL program. We have 17% of our students receiving special education services, and this year 48% of our student body qualifies for free or reduced price lunch, and this is notable for us as 10 years ago we were at 12%. We also are very proud of our faculty and staff and our students. We have a long history of collaborative decision-making and a child-centered approach to all of the educational and extracurricular activities that we provide. And I'm just very pleased to be here tonight and look forward to sharing more about our district. I also want to point out that there is no relationship between me and Mr. McTague and Niles North.
You get that question a lot too, then.
Good evening, I'm Jim Schoch from East Prairie School. East Prairie is the smallest of the Skokie districts with 507 students, but as several of the superintendents have said, we've been growing every year. As a matter of fact, at the beginning of the year, I was outside of the school before school started, and one of the parents said, "Oh, Dr. Schoch, what do you think of all these little toddlers running around?" And I said, "You know, it looks like job security." So we're very happy to have everybody here. Of our 507 students, actually 20% of our students receive special education services of some type. Also, 23% of our students receive English language services. But what is even more notable than that, and increasing, other than our 23% who actually receive services, 43% of our students come from homes where a language other than English is spoken. So if you think, 43% hear a different language at home, that's a big change for us. Another big change for us is that 24% of our children are now on free reduced lunch. When I came to East Prairie 8 years ago, we had 12 students on free and reduced lunch. This year we're up to 124. So it really shows what's happening in our community with the economy and what's going on in our school district. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Carter Murphy and I'm the superintendent at Evanston Skokie School District 65. We have 7,000 students approximately in our district, roughly 1,000 staff, 650 teachers. We have approximately 68 languages spoken in the district. 50% of our students are white, 27% are African American, 20% are Hispanic, which has been our fastest growing population, 3% are multiracial, Asian, Native American, and people of the First Nation, if you will. And 40% of our students are free and reduced lunch. Our homeless population is growing also. We have roughly 74 students who speak a different language in our ESL at Walker School. We have roughly 68 languages spoken in our district. Our budget's about $107 million. We're pre-K through 8. We have 3 6th grade middle schools, 2 K through 8 magnet schools. We have a full-day kindergarten. We have a Head Start and a state pre-K program. We have a SPAC program that is for students below the age of 3. We have a family center that is also in our pre-K center. And we have a school for disabilities at Park. All total, that comes to about 18 different schools and programs and 17 different locations.
but repeat the question. Have decreasing revenues affected the quality of education that your district is able to provide? And by what means does your district preserve important programs?
Thank you. When we've been looking through our budget, we were always looking at programs and how can we do more with less. And I actually have to give our staff credit in that we are all of our teachers, all our administrators, everyone is doing more with less. We have not cut any programs at East Prairie. We've been very fortunate that the board and East Prairie in general has been very conservative in spending over the years. And so at this point, we have not cut any programs. But we've also, in addition to doing more with less, we've also been doing a lot of out-of-the-box thinking. How can we do things differently with the resources that we have? For example, when we were looking at class size a year ago, 2 years ago actually, we were worried about our class sizes in 4th and 5th grade because they were becoming close to 30, 32. So we changed our model to a multi-age model. Now, in our class size for 4th and 5th grade are 22 and 23. That's an example of that. Like several of our other school districts, we have a pre-K program, an at-risk program. But because of state cutbacks, our program was not funded this year. That's minus $140,000. And for a small district, that's a lot of money. So how can we continue with this program that's very important to us without it being funded? So what we're doing is that this year we're piloting, we have the at-risk program, and we're piloting some tuition-based, so we can have a preschool for regular students in our school also. And actually we just had a parent meeting about expanding that next year then to having 50% being tuition-based and 50% being at-risk. So really looking outside of the box, continuing to be conservative in our spending and going through every budget line item. Our board is very, very observant of every line. How are we spending and how can we do things more effectively? And then the last thing I'd like to mention is just the fact that all the superintendents work together and how can we purchase things together? How can we do things more efficiently by working together and big schools and little schools alike and seeing how we can work to maximize everything that we do.
Thank you. Somebody want to jump in with that? You're about District 73.
Our district too has been very financially conservative over the last several years. I've been with the district for 15 years and I'm very used to working with the administration where we are careful about every dollar. Our Board of Education has been very forward-thinking. We've been preparing for the changes of revenue before they occur. Because of that, we have been able to maintain our programs. We're always looking at staffing and how can we staff it and maintain the integrity but have a program cost less, be efficient with what we have. We did pass a referendum several years back and have worked very diligently to keep those funds going for as long as we possibly can. So I would say from a history of careful spending, thoughtful spending, scrutinization of every expenditure that we've been able to maintain our programs and even grown in some areas. So I'm very proud of where we are financially.
I'll jump in.
Thank you.
At District 72, we're feeling very financially stable at this point in time, and it's really to our residents and the voters. Prior to 2004, we weren't necessarily in such good shape. We had to make significant cutbacks to many of our programs. Our class sizes grew. We had to trim in every which way that we could. But following a successful referendum, the district has been very sensitive and cautious about reinstating any of those programs that we had previously cut. The board has been judicious in bringing back things slowly, and only if we can make a good argument as to why we needed to continue with different programs. So over the years, we've been very mindful. The board has been prudent, and we've tried to stretch our dollars in any way we can. As Dr. Schock mentioned, we work together collaboratively in the township. We are in an insurance cooperative together to help save money. We have a busing cooperative. We have a special education cooperative. And all of those types of activities help us to really stretch the dollars that we have and maximize the resources at hand for our kids. So that being said, thanks again. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. Since becoming a superintendent, the Board of Education, and Clint is here tonight representing the board, and I have agreed that every single year there should be an annual review of programs and personnel, regardless of where the district is financially. It's like any other organization or business. Our business is teaching and learning, and we believe that every program and every position needs to be reviewed every year, and we've done that. We've done it successfully because we are reinvesting in so many new programs. I hope you've read a lot about them, our STEM labs, our programs in mathematics and engineering, for example, some of our feeder programming for students before they even get to District 219. And all of that has come because we have reinvested in those areas by eliminating and cutting programs that have not been as successful, under-enrolled, or do not, in fact, return any kind of achievement return on our investment. That being said, however, I do want to emphasize that that's always done very, very carefully, and I'm really happy to report that over the last 3 years of that process, we've cut over $6 million in human resource spending, but we haven't cut a single program. Yes, courses are different, their structure different, there may be slight changes in the way we staff, but not a single program has been cut. And to not do that would not be investing in the 21st century learner, would not be investing in new programs that are essential for our students to graduate and go on post-secondary high school without exponentially increasing our budget, and then therefore exponentially increasing the need for more tax dollars. And so that's the process that we continue to take. And I do want to mention that the annual review of programs and personnel are on the website. You can look through it, you can make comments to it so that the board can understand what it is the constituents value and what programs that are being looked at need to have a stronger look at or a different voice. Thanks.
I'll jump into District 69. We remain committed to our students, and the increasing revenues have caused us to look at how we allocate our resources to maintain the quality of education that we have offered our students. We've cut down the amount of programming we were able to offer, specifically in the past year, art, music, gifted education, and library services. Unfortunately, the lack of a long-term funding plan from the state of Illinois has virtually crippled our ability to plan as well. The state of Illinois currently owes District 69 over $350,000 for this year alone. The local TIF districts have also negatively affected our ability to capture increased property values for taxing purposes. Class sizes have been affected. We have taken the approach that we need to hyper-focus our efforts in an attempt to pare down our programs while we maintain a viable core that will allow our students to be successful when we do enter District 219. Although our staff is stretched like never before, and we're asking far more from them than we ever have in the past, I'd like to make it known that every individual teacher is phenomenal and beyond reproach. Individual quality in the classroom has never been better.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Murphy, I'll throw this one at you first. Residency is a big topic that came up in our survey. What steps does your district take to ensure that all students who are enrolled in your district are bona fide residents of your district?
Several years ago, we identified that we determined that we had a large percentage of students in our district who actually were not residents. And this has been something I think is part of the history of the district going back over the years. It wasn't a recent phenomenon. And we undertook the development of planning systems to assure that the students did live in the district, and it's a re-registration process. And we've been through several iterations of it. The first iteration of it was requiring everyone in the district to bring in materials that determine whether or not they actually were residents, including actual leases, not promised leases, receipts from the payment of utilities, and things of that nature. That, in fact, had the effect of probably relieving us of as many as 500 to 600 students over the first couple, 2 or 3 years that we did it. It is a process, though, that many of our parents felt was onerous. So what we felt like we should do at this point, because we kind of had a handle on it, was to provide some relief so that people didn't have to go through this So now we have people registering at first-time students coming in and grades K through 3 and 6. So those would be students entering the middle schools, the intermediate level, and first-time students in grade 6, in kindergarten.
In District 68, we are very diligent about residency checking at registration. 2 years ago, we started to have our families, our currently enrolled families, re-register. And we also ask for our new registrants to bring in a package of documentation, including actual leases with all children's names listed on the lease, or warranty deeds, 2 forms of utility bills, and state ID or driver's license. We also work collaboratively across the township. If we get information that we have a registering family that resides in another district or who's trying to register in multiple districts, we share that information among the superintendents. We also have some online database tools that we can double check for proof of residency. And in cases where we suspect that we have a family that doesn't reside within the district, we do hire a retired Skokie police officer who conducts a residency check. May go to the home, in some cases may go into the home, ask to go into the home and actually see that the student's personal effects are in the home and this is where the child resides on a consistent basis.
It's a good opportunity to highlight the partnership that we have in this regard too, because the District 219 does partner with the feeder districts to actually take on residency. And I'm really happy that Niles Township has a reputation for being very vigilant when it comes to residency. In addition to what Dr. McTagg said, we do withdraw about 50 students every school year, and we estimate that equates to about $1 million worth of educational spending when you consider all the resources and the per pupil expenditure. I'm also happy to report that we haven't received any challenges, which goes to show you that we're doing a very, very good job. Also, someone with us tonight is our Chief Legal Officer, John Hines, who helps coordinate that effort with our security department. We work with all the feeder districts to share those resources in investigating families, and it really is important that the residents of this community are afforded the opportunity to attend these wonderful schools, and that we are not a place where people know that it's easy to come and go to school here even though you're not living in the community and paying taxes. And I think it's another great example of how we're partnering to do that.
Thank you. I'm going to jump to this end. Dr. Whitaker, I'll start with this question. How does your district close the achievement gap without compromising the needs of students who are already achieving at a high level?
Well, at Fairview, we're lucky. We are able to offer programs for students who are higher achievers. We have a gifted program in both the area of reading and math that's available to students in kindergarten through 8th grade. And then we also have support services for students who are struggling, whether it be in reading or any other subject area. Our staff is fully on board with RTI, response to intervention, and that really helps us grab onto any of those kids that are falling between the cracks. So in our situation, as I mentioned before, we're lucky in that we can have the staffing, we can have the programs that kids need across the spectrum. So we're able to cover all the bases in that sense.
In District 73, like many of our districts, we also have a gifted and talented teacher. But it's important to note that gifted and talented children are gifted and talented all the time, not just when they're with a gifted and talented teacher. So we have made an effort over the last 8 years to do a lot of in-service training with our teachers on differentiation. How do you meet the needs of all the students in your classroom? And all children, we believe that all children have the right to be challenged. And whether they're high achieving or low achieving students, they need to be appropriately challenged. And so over the years, as I said, we worked very hard on working with our teachers, basically teaching teachers how to differentiate their curriculum, how to differentiate in their instruction without what some people would say dumbing down the curriculum. You know, we find other ways to present curriculum to children and to be able to challenge higher students with that same curriculum all at the same time. So I'm real proud of some of the steps that we've taken with differentiation, and I'm very pleased with the direction that we're going.
In addition to what you've heard, District 68 also has full-time gifted education teachers at each of our elementary schools and 1.5 at our junior high. We have begun, as my colleagues have, aligning curriculum to the new Common Core standards, which in essence are increasing the rigor in reading, language arts, and mathematics by about a year per grade level. And the curriculum and professional development work we're doing and what we are calling professional learning communities within our schools has our teachers looking at these standards, looking at student achievement data, not only in the aggregate by grade level, but also by individual students who may not be making the kind of growth we expect to see in any given year, and setting very specific achievement goals. In our junior high, students are setting their own goals. At the elementary school, we're setting goals by classroom and by grade level, and we are tracking progress now in a very systematic way. And that collaborative work, that differentiated curriculum, that looking at data, not just for at-risk students, but for all students, is really helping us to close an achievement gap that does exist for us.
I just want to add, in our district, we also, RTI, we have an extended learning program for grades 4 through 8. We too are working on Common Core. We've also had a huge emphasis on individual student growth every year. We monitor academic growth in reading and math 3 times a year. Our strategic plan goal is that 100% of our classes will have academic growth. It's a very lofty goal, but it's something that reminds our staff and holds them accountable that every child will grow, no matter whether or not they're at the top of the academic for their age or if they're struggling. We look for growth for everyone.
Thank you. That's Dr. Nathaniel, I'll start with you. What changes have you made in your district to address the special education population?
Well, very recently we brought back an instructional kindergarten program that had been under the auspices of the Niles Township Department of Special Ed, or NTDSE, back under the auspices of District 68. And it is a cluster classroom, meaning children who would attend Devonshire School and Jane Stenson School are housed in this classroom at Highland School with other kindergarten students who need special education services, and that has saved the district a significant amount of money because we're not paying tuition costs to NTDSE. This year we opened our first preschool special education classroom. We have a blended program for 3- and 4-year-olds in the morning and a self-contained program in the afternoon, and we are looking at opening a second class in January. As we have revised curriculum, we have also been able to include special education children in the regular education classroom for a portion of the general ed curriculum. So that has resulted in a shift in how students are labeled for funding recruiting purposes and identification purposes, more students who can participate for more than 50% of their day in a regular education program and are considered resource level students. And we have our, at the K-5 level, most of our special education students participating in portions of our regular reading program, as well as science and social studies and art, music, physical education. So those have been the significant changes we've made recently.
In a small district, special education is always a concern because sometimes how do you have a program when you only have 2 children that have those needs? And we've been very fortunate in that we've arranged a partnership with District 72 with Dr. Whitaker. And between our school districts now, we have both Skokie school districts, obviously, and we have a full continuum of services from preschool all the way through middle school. And then we can keep children in a regular education setting, but yet they can still receive the services they need. But we're not worried about how are we going to have services for 2 children. We can now, but when we have our districts coming together, we have enough students that will make a bona fide classroom, and we can feel like we can meet their needs. And we've been so happy with the partnership that we've made with District 72.
I just want to make one other general comment that, our goal as it is with my colleagues is to keep our special education students in their home school. It's better for the student, but it's also better economically for the taxpayer. And I want to make that kind of broad statement because that is how we all work together in making sure that we can do that.
And I'll jump in on that. The work that we do in Niles Township for children with special needs is truly amazing, whether it be through our cooperative and TDSE. The resources at the Malloy Center are amazing. There's a swimming pool, there's a sensory motor room for children, so that some children who have never had the opportunity to walk can actually be suspended and virtually walking across the room. It's truly a sweet thing, and we encourage you to visit that center and schedule an appointment and go over to see the great things that are happening for these kids on this part of the spectrum. But as we mentioned, the joy of having our own students back in our buildings has been huge. At Fairview, we're a fully inclusive school. It has benefited our regular students, I believe, as much as our special education students. They walk the halls with children who are in wheelchairs and see children who are on the autistic spectrum who may have different behaviors than they're used to. But what it has permitted our regular education students to understand is that people are all different. Kids are different. And so I truly am proud of how our school has grown by being fully inclusive and welcoming these students who are our own district residents back into our buildings. Fairview has instructional classrooms for children with serious needs that need to be in a special education classroom for more than 50% of their day. We also have resource programs for children who are less severe. And then we always have the option of the Julia Malloy Center for those kids that just have such severe needs that they can't be serviced in a regular education facility like our own. So one thing that we do see is we see many families moving into this township with children with special needs. And it's a compliment. It's a compliment to the types of services that are offered. The word is out that if you have a child with these types of needs, the place you want to be is in Niles Township.
Thank you.
I would like to comment, and certainly we mirror virtually everything else you've heard from all the other school districts here. So I have nothing further to add. I mean, we do a similar program as many of the districts. I would like to say though, and I'm sure the rest of the superintendents would join me in saying that in large part the reason our Malloy Center is as successful as it is because of the hard work of that staff. The principal at that school, who I know is here this evening, and the director. He even raised his hand, so I'll call him out. Mr. Myers back there, and also the executive.
stop pulling students out for special education services. We still have Park School, which serves students with severe developmental disabilities. But by and large, we started building from the ground up cohorts of students who are not pulled out of special education services. But what we do is we push in to provide services for them. And it's a philosophical position that you have to take. I often say when I get a chance to speak about this, that sometimes you wonder how people are going to remember our time here. And I do think that as people look back in the history books of what we were able to do when we were here, I think people are going to evaluate how we treated those who were less fortunate as far as their mental and physical gifts are concerned than some of the rest of us. And I think that if we're able to expose students who have disabilities to something that's as closely as possible to a real life experience, just hearing the noise of being in classrooms with the regularly developing peers, that we do them the best service because we give them all a better chance of experiencing lives where they might be able to function with a certain degree of independence. And I think that is the purpose of public education. So in District 65, we made a conscious effort to not pull students out and segregate them because they have disabilities.
Sean started that, and I'm sure that a lot of people will chime in about this. This is a hot topic. It was brought up very heavily in our survey. School consolidation. When asked, do you think that school consolidation would benefit the community? Why or why not?
This is an interesting question and a great question, and I'd like to thank you for raising it, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the process by which I came to the answer to this question. So part of the process that we used in District 69 was to have a series of internal meetings that would allow us the opportunity to discuss these questions prior to tonight's forum, so that I could accurately represent our district and hopefully our community. And this particular question allowed for more discussion in our district than any of the other questions on the forum. What we came to realize, I'm sure you all realize this, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, is that consolidation is an incredibly complicated issue, and feelings run deep with a lot of folks in a lot of different ways. And so at the end of the day, when we thought about what it is that we could say around consolidation, while trying to give it the depth that it deserves, but also being thoughtful about it, is that it comes down to students. Right? That's what it boils down to, is if it benefits kids. The fact of the matter is, if it benefits kids, we're confident in student success, we would support the issue. We're not sure that it ultimately would, though. And it's not a decision that rests at the board level, but it does rest as a voter issue. And that's something that we remain committed to.
As the smallest district in Skokie, actually a tribune reporter called me last year about this same topic. Since you're the smallest district in Skokie, wouldn't it make sense if you consolidated? And my response was, you would think on the face of it, of course it would make sense. It just seems like it would. But like a lot of things, and especially in the state of Illinois, things are not black and white. And part of the question is, would it benefit your community? And as Skokie, as we can see up here, is a community within communities. And so my answer has to be, it depends upon the perspective of this part of the community that you're talking about. Now, I would speak to the East Prairie part of the community. When we're looking at consolidation, when we look at the tax rate for East Prairie School, we're among the lower of the tax rate. Well, if we were to consolidate, probably, it depends on some negotiations that has to go on, but probably the tax rate for the East Prairie people would go up. So it comes down to incentive. What incentive would there be for East Prairie to want to consolidate? We already have among the lowest tax rate. If we consolidated, it would probably go up. Another thing to consider is, our debt level. By 2015, our debt is almost gone. By 2018, we will have no debt. Well, would we really want to consolidate, and if another district has more depth, would East Prairie want to do that? And again, it depends on the perspective from the community that you're looking at this from. And from East Prairie, at this point, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. I probably the most gray hair of anybody up here. I have hair anyway. And, you know, at one time the state of Illinois had a program that if two districts were to consolidate and there was debt in either or both, the state of Illinois would pick up that debt. Well, obviously we know that's not going to happen. The state of Illinois can't pay their bills now, let alone pick up anybody else's. So it really comes to incentive. Would children have a better education? What would be the effect on taxpayers? How would the effect on our teachers and our buildings? And you have to look at the whole picture.
In addition to everything that's been said, I do want to share that we do try to find efficiencies economically across the district. We heard earlier tonight that we are sharing bus services. We have an insurance co-op. We are doing some cooperative purchasing, and we share not just between districts 73 and 72 for special education programming, but we open up classrooms for early childhood education across the township for any student. So for instance, if our classroom, early childhood classroom in District 68 was full, our special ed classroom, we could place a student in one of the other districts and pay a much lower tuition rate, a rate that was agreed upon between the superintendents and respective school boards, than to pay the much higher NTDSE rate. So when we talk about consolidation, I think the surface level as well, we would say, because we wouldn't be paying a superintendent's salary, or but the larger a district grows, the more middle management positions come into play, and there probably isn't a savings in terms of personnel. In addition to combining tax rates and generally moving to the higher tax rates, consolidating districts also move generally to the higher teacher salary schedule, negotiated contracts with teachers and benefits. So there have been some studies done recently by, particularly out of the University of Colorado, that talked about consolidation across the United States, and that most of the economic efficiencies have already been gained from consolidation. And Illinois saw a number of consolidations about 25, 30 years ago. And I know there's an intuitive sense when you've got a sprinkling of small school districts in one village, wouldn't it make sense to consolidate? But our communities within the larger Skokie community are so very different from a taxing perspective that tax savings is probably going to be limited if we were to pursue consolidation for some of these districts.
Dr. Gott, let's lead off with you. With the success of the Nelson Township Schools English Language Learners Parent Center, which focuses on the needs of the EL families, has any thought been given to creating a community-wide student center to provide students with tutoring, mentoring, and other activities?
We already have it. It's called the Literacy Center. It's open every single period of the day, before and after school. We tutor students from peer tutors and certified teachers in every single subject. And we actually have been recognized nationally as the model for this type of support service. And so I'm very happy to say that District 219 is trailblazing the way on that issue.
I would add that we as well have many wonderful programs. We have an enrichment program, athletic programs. Our enrichment programs have tutoring, homework help, computer help, basket weaving, clay making. I mean, we
have so many wonderful programs that really keep children busy after the school hours. I'd also like to plug the Skokie Public Library. They have so many wonderful programs. We have a great partnership with them and do our best to promote their programs so that they get the most participation that they can get as well.
The ELO Parent Center is funded by an intergovernmental agreement across 8 school districts in Niles Township. So if we were to consider some kind of student assistance program, after-school activity center, the issue of funding and staffing would be paramount to being able to see a program like that become successful. At the ELO Parent Center, we're not dealing with children directly, we're supporting adults. And the overhead costs for running a program are going to increase when you're talking about student supervision and transportation and materials and academic coaches and whatnot. So I think the idea is interesting. Most of us have after-school options for students, but in terms of the funding aspect of running a community-based after-school center for students, the issue is going to come down as to who pays for that.
Thank you. Dr. Murphy, I'll start with you again on this question. There are school resource officers at 2 of the larger middle schools in Skokie. What else is your district doing to ensure a safe school environment?
Thank you. We also have school resource officers. One of the things that we're doing that I think is pretty creative is we've been pretty aggressively addressing lighting issues in our schools. The other thing we've been doing through the working with the additions to our school, because we're having increased enrollment, as we've been putting in vestibules so that when people enter the school, they actually go through a chamber. And I've got one of our school board members in, Andy Lugosi, and want to raise your hand, please. And he explained to me that what we're doing, because he's an architect and he does school architecture, is that the design is such that it sends people through someone. So part of the design is that people cannot come into our schools without looking at someone in the eye and then listen to them. And I remember what you said when we were walking through the schools is that what that does is that if a person has a malevolent predisposition or he has harmful intent, if they look in the eye, that person's not going to come to school. They're going to turn around and go back out. And I thought that was an interesting insight for me. But the other part of it is that when we started putting these in, after the first one, I started asking our guys to make sure that we had, what's the term for it, resistant glass putting? Did I get that right too?
That's right.
So otherwise it's comes bulletproof glass. So those are some of the things. Additionally, we have to be buzzed in, and we have cameras throughout the schools.
Sean, would you like to say something? Would you like to say security?
Certainly. Since we're one of the small schools, we don't have the resource officers, but we do have police liaison that comes, which actually for us works in a very similar fashion. We have a great relationship with the village of Skokie and their police department, and we have a police officer that's in our building very often. The children know them. Like I said, it's a great relationship. It's actually humorous in the building because our head custodian, our director of building grounds, has cameras all over the place, outside, inside. Even we do not have them in the washroom, but we know if something happened in the washroom, we know who go in and out, and by the process of elimination, we can figure out what was the culprit doing in there. So really, there's just so many things. In addition to like the other buildings, you have to be buzzed in. You just can't walk into our building. We're also looking at part of our strategic plan. One of the goals is to actually look to see how can we do an even better job. And how, once a person's in the building, how do we know where they're going? And how do we keep track of people? So that's actually part of our strategic plans.
I'd like to jump in if I can. We do have a school resource officer in District 69, and she's here tonight. I see her hiding out in the back corner, Officer Landeros. Thank you. When I first looked at this question, my first response was to dig into the data, to see what the data would support. And from perception surveys of our students and discipline reports, issues like bullying, which are sometimes considered to be a major issue, I guess, as a community perception stands, isn't as big of an issue as it may seem. Frankly, it's just not as present in our district. We don't see it in discipline reports. I mean, there are instances of it, and when it does happen, we take it very seriously, but it just doesn't happen. The data doesn't support it as much of an issue that many would like to think it is. There's two parts to this particular issue. The first is responsiveness, which we've talked a little bit about. The things that we do to try to keep it, when it does happen, to try to make sure that it doesn't continue to happen. And so we use a number of mechanisms to look at responsiveness. Specifically in our district, we use peer mediation, second step, mentoring programs, CHAMPS, and active listening. But that's the responsiveness piece. That's what we do when we do hear that there are instances of bullying or some threats of violence. The other piece to that puzzle is prevention. So what do you do to keep it from happening in the first place? We have programs for this as well, numerous programs, which I probably won't get to all of them, but we have the Check and Connect program, we have peer mediation programs, we have mentoring programs. These came about largely because of the initiative of teachers who see the need for these programs for student safety and well-being. Certainly we're proud of our comprehensive plan in District 69.
So from the high school perspective, clearly there's an expectation from communities that high school districts, all school districts, have these security measures that have been talked about today. And so of course we have cameras and resource officers and check-ins at the front door. But I'm here to tell you tonight that you create safe schools not by police, not by metal detectors, not by bag check. You keep schools safe by ensuring every kid has a connection to something and some adult. And that is why you have to invest heavily in extracurricular programming, academic clubs. At District 219, that ranges from things like the hip-hop club and cricket club to crime study to every athletic competition and fine art type event. When kids are connected to their school and feel good about something and have an adult that's advocating for them, schools are safe. And I think the best litmus test of that for me as a superintendent is when I walk into the school's pep assemblies and I see our student body, literally close to 3,000 students in a gymnasium, cheering on one another for a scientific experiment, the CEC basketball club, the band, and everything in between. It creates an atmosphere of camaraderie, differentiation, and a sense of excitement about being in a school that is celebrating its diversity. And so, with all of that being said, I can't help also but emphasize that the partnership that we do have with the Niles Township Youth Coalition, with one another, with the Skokie Police Department, is also essential. Chief Scarpelli and I have each other's cell phone numbers. Unfortunately, we sometimes have to call each other on the weekend, on a weekend night, and why? So that our principals and counselors know what they're walking into on Monday morning with something that might have happened, not even in the schools, but in the community that weekend that affects teens in our building. And I think that that's part of the excitement. So I ask you all to think about and reframe school safety as an issue of more preventative than just reactionary.
That was such a powerful comment, almost academic to follow up, but I did want to comment that our police and fire departments have been exceptional with the schools. The state of Illinois requires all public schools to have a crisis management plan, and we have a representative from the police and fire departments come to each of our schools every summer before we open a new school year and walk through the crisis management plan with us, give us suggestions of, the latest thinking on how we might handle certain situations. Additionally, police officers come to all of our schools and observe our lockdown drills and are there when we do unannounced lockdown drills so that they can see firsthand how we are handling the practice of responding to an emergency situation. And so it is the support that we get from the community that you should feel very proud of as well, that we support each other, and the municipal agencies in town have our back as well.
Thank you. We do have more questions. We received over 300 responses to our survey for the schools forum, but I am going to lead in now to the question and answer session from the audience. If you would like to step up to the microphone to ask a question, please do so. Please state your name, and please, if you want to form a line, that's fine. We'll start working through these.
Hi, my name is Bob Katz. I own a store 2 blocks west of here called the Magazine Museum. My way of background, my sister was a Chicago public school teacher for many years, and I used to own a foreign language bookstore in Chicago that sold 100 different language systems, 100 different languages. I came to Skokie specifically because of its multicultural background. And when I came here, I sent notices out to every school, every teacher I could find on the internet, not just here, but to all the universities in the metropolitan regions. To McCracken, to Lincoln, and to both of the high schools. And out of all of the hundreds of emails I sent out saying that we're 100,000 magazines back to the 15th century, please bring your class to tour. Or we're the only place left that sells flags between Wisconsin and Indiana. Maybe that'd be useful. Not one person responded. In fact, if you don't feel too bad, the entire metro region only one guy from Alliance Française responded. We're going to die. If the landlord of the Illinois Science and Technology wants to get rid of me, he could. I don't know what it takes, but it's a cultural phenomenon. I wish you would come. The nearest other place like it is 2,000 miles away, and there's 4 left in the United States. You're not here to support businesses, but what I offer this community is like no other, and I sure wish somebody would have responded. And he said, yeah, this is really interesting. The kids would like to see newspapers from the 15th century, 16th, 17th, whatever. It's free. I thought at least the teachers would get to know and maybe see that we're a viable enterprise we're supporting. So why am I here to ask the teachers? I'm looking for a little extra credit. Why don't you give it a chance? Magazine Museum, 2 blocks away. It's very cool, and it's done.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Norman Frankel. Short. Live in School District 69, and just a couple of questions. The incredibly unequal disparity of revenue distribution amongst the districts. 69 is getting really squeezed, and Fairview participates in the Old Orchard revenue. Why isn't the taxes on the Old Orchard spread around the entire community? Is Old Orchard in Skokie, or is it just from Fairview?
Actually, Old Orchard is in Fairview. We do have a large corporate and commercial base. Primarily,
decisions made by school districts, boards. Those are legal decisions that happened when Skokie was incorporated, and different taxing bodies carved up the village in certain ways. That's the best answer. If anybody else wants to add to that.
Any suggestions on how we can change that?
Well, and that would be beyond our control. Actually, it has to do with state law. And when I actually had a parent who called me and say, well, couldn't my children come to your school even if we live in another district? And I said, well, no, it has to do with where does your tax money go? And your tax money goes to the district in which you live, which is the same with the industrial base. And that's divided, and it's the same in other communities where the lines are drawn. And so that's not something that anyone here at this table or any board of education really has any control over.
District 69 is really start, and we need District 1 or however you want to.
I heard the other side. I live in 73 and a half, and whereas most districts have 70% industry and 30% residential, we're backwards. We're 30% industrial, 70% residential. But again, it goes back to, and I'll chime in here, I'm a superintendent. Basically, early in school, I don't know why I'm even up here. It all goes back to how it's really distributed. It's done at the statewide level. How it was split up, again, how would it be done fairly? Just like, the state of Illinois, where basically a lot of your financial problems are stemming from because they have a constitutional law that says that the state of Illinois has to be the predominant payer of a children's education at more than 50%, and Illinois is about 37%. So the state, the lack of funding and part of the financial problems that districts throughout the state are going through is due to starting on the state level. We all know the Illinois financial system, and that could be a whole other forum for a whole lot of days. So.
Just one other point, sit down. Thanks to all of you for coming, but there are too many of you. We need to consolidate districts. People are walking away from their houses. We need to think creatively and how to consolidate. We have too many governmental units, school districts. The taxpayers are growing. That's it.
No, I think I don't want to, say differently, but again, that would start, as what I heard earlier, basically on the board level and with the taxpayers of that district. I don't believe that's a decision that an administrator would make for any school district.
I think if we don't try to think creatively about this, there's two words: stop war. Think about it.
Oh, well, I agree with you, and I think what I'm saying is that this is an issue that needs to be brought to each district's school board. They are the elected official from that district, elected by the people of that district, and that's where it needs to start. Believe me, 73 and a half with the low industrial base, I think I can speak for Dana Otto saying, our door's open, come on. We'll talk anyway.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sam Lewis. I'm on the board of the Skokie Voice. Just want to say thank you all for being in attendance on a very windy evening. We really appreciate it. My question revolves around the food in the schools. Just wanted to know, what are you guys doing creatively to address some issues like child obesity, and what ideas do you have going forward to attack that issue?
I'm going to jump in and take this question because I'm very proud that this year is the inaugural year of District 219, bringing in a new food service provider, Organic Life, and also partnering with the National School Lunch Program. What that does for our students is offer a healthy plate of the day, every single day, literally for $2.25. That's very, very exciting to us because our students told us that they want healthier options at a reduced price. Well, pizza costs more money now, and so do fries, because it's subsidizing that low-cost healthy food, but we think it's a step in the right direction. physical education every single year, every single semester, even though by law we could allow them to waive out if they, for example, participated in a sport or marching band. And so those are two of the ways that we are working right now at combating that issue. And I have to tell you, it's the students who are coming to the administration and to the board and saying, we want better options. We want to be a part of a healthy school environment that includes healthy food. You know, I would just say if we value the cafeteria as much as we did the classroom, if we did, you could feed everybody every day for free. In the cost, it would take that same number of students, divided by the class cap, and then teacher salaries. You could literally feed every child for free every day if you valued it as much as you did every single other course that we offer in District 219. We're not there yet, but stepping into the National School Lunch Program was a step in the right direction.
I'm glad you raised this question also. You've heard from all of us that the number of students who are qualifying for free and reduced lunches in this community are rising significantly. And we had a board discussion last night in District 72 about the number of students that this may be the only meal that they have. So by providing them, whether it be organic or whether it be fresh foods, providing them with a hot meal if that's what they choose, one that's healthy, it may be their only meal of the day. And so we take this really seriously because that's a lot on our shoulders when we think about the magnitude of what school lunches mean to kids. In addition, we believe that physical education is something which children should experience every single day. Kindergarten through 8th grade students have PE class every day in District 72. In addition, they all have recess. They need to play, they need to be outside, and to keep them active so that when they come back into the school, their minds are ready to learn and they're ready to focus. So I'm really glad that you raised that question because I think that's an important one for all of us to consider.
I'd also like to add, our board has an advisory council, so it meets regularly to talk about this. We offer variations on our food plan, occasionally tasting out recipes. Last year, for a brief period of time in one of our schools, we did a high fructose corn syrup free breakfast option for kids. So we tried to go nutritional. So the net effect of that is that we saw a lot of kids not wanting to eat breakfast. But we tried it anyway. We too are committed to physical education. Recently, we visited with District 219 to explore their program, this great organic program that they have going off the ground. And lots of great things happening within reason, of course, because like so many other things, we try to keep it financially balanced.
I was just going to add, our district has a PTA Healthy Food Task Force for the last several years and has scrutinized everything on our lunch lines, and everything meets nutrition criteria. There's a healthy choice bar where kids need to choose fruits and vegetables. I've even been known to go down there and serve vegetables as a way of trying to promote them. We've done everything from the alphabet vegetable to healthy recipes. In our weekly, we also do not offer physical education every day, but we do have a PE extension program where we have parents who work in our recess program who, for the first part of recess, do a structured activity with our kids. We started that because we felt like our kids know how to do Nintendo or whatever the latest game is, but no one knows how to play Statue Maker anymore, or any of those great old games. So we've been working on it and we'll continue to work on it.
Thank you.
Can I jump back in? I forgot. I gotta get a second answer on this one. I forgot to mention our junior high students last year. They participated in Michelle Obama's White House Challenge for the healthy recipes, and our students submitted several recipes across the entire spectrum. They worked with a chef who donated her time. Chef Patsy came out, worked with the kids, coordinated with the teachers. I was so thrilled. Not only did they submit several recipes, but we found out that ours was one of the highest ranked recipes out of the entire national organization. In fact, ranked so highly that we're going to be published in the cookbook that's going to come out as part of the White House Challenge. So when the cookbook becomes available, of course, we'll post it on
John Peters, and I live in District 73.5, and you're bleeding the taxpayers dry with school taxes. I see my taxes go up from $1,000 to $7,000 plus. The vast majority is going to the schools. Now, how do you expect homeowners to sustain $300, $400, $500, $600 increases in their taxes every year? There has to be some restraint on the school districts, or seniors like myself simply can't afford to live in Skokie. It's intolerable. You're not the elite of Skokie. You're not on an ivory pedestal. You've got to live in the real world. The real world says there has to be constraints on spending. The prices of houses go down and the school taxes go up. Is there no restraint? Is there no end to it?
Okay, so I think what you're asking, sir, is not just in 73.5, but probably the whole state of Illinois, is that taxes keep going up, and saying that the schools are basically the cause of this because of the over-reliance on property taxes in the state. So I'll ask a bunch of superintendents to jump in here and kind of explain why this happens.
Can nothing be done?
Well, strong schools make for strong communities. I'm sure I speak for all of my colleagues up here and the school boards that we represent, that all of us are trying to contain costs, and we understand the struggle in our communities right now, particularly with decline in property values. I don't think that any of us would consider any of the programs that we are offering in our schools to be lavish or frivolous, or programs that we could do away with. If you as a community want the best quality education for your children, then you need to pay your teachers a fair market wage. You need to have up-to-date technology and instructional materials. You need to have buildings that are modern and adaptable to changing instructional needs. And our costs are going up, so we are, very sensitive to the economic conditions right now in our area. We're all feeling the effect of increasing families that meet the low-income standard and are being subsidized through federal monies that come through the schools. There is no easy answer to this.
And I'll jump in because this has been something that I have been working on for the past almost 8 years, which is education funding reform statewide. As I mentioned earlier, the state of Illinois, in its fiscal disarray, does not meet its obligation of funding education. It's as simple as that. There are many, there are many things that they have done to try to improve it over the years, but because of the different parties with the infighting and the politics have never accomplished. Public policy does not happen in Springfield, and if any legislator wants to come up and talk to me about it in a forum, I'll be glad to debate that with them. It starts at that level. Schools need to function, cities need to function. We expect our roads to be drivable, we expect our schools to be safe and to provide education. So I urge you, while you may want to complain to the schools, but to pick up that phone and call your local legislator and start there, because that's where the problem starts. That's my commercial.
Yeah, I also want to state that, historically, the federal, state, and local governments have looked to schools as the place that does a lot more than just educate students. And why? Because we are the best equipped agency to do that. We all could tell you stories that would chill you to the bone of the children's lives that are with us right now today. And some of these come through mandates, but some of these things that we do happen because it's a child's basic need. We are literally feeding, clothing, providing medical support, social support for students in addition to educating them and providing a host of activities before and after school and for the community. And that takes resources. But there's a reason why historically that job has fallen on the shoulders of public schools. Because what other agency is more equipped to do so? And so when you think about schools and you say to educate our children, I want you to expand that and think about for a minute what's going on in our doors and in our hallways with nurses and psychologists and special education and medically fragile students and cafeterias. They're massive operations that are a lot more than a book and a pencil. And those essential functions for children, not just to be successful post-secondary high school, post-graduation, to be a contributing member of society. But we're talking about children's basic needs to be able to function as a human being. And it requires enormous resources that are increasing every single day, and our role as a public school is increasing every day. I often say, yes, there's the education part of what we do, and let me tell you about everything else that happens in the walls every day. It's something that Skokie should be so very proud of, and where so many communities fall short.
Hi, I'm Dr. Juliana Cargo. I will recognize that I have kind of a bias because I'm an educator and college professor. But I also have another bias. I have two small kids. So I don't know how many people will relate to that issue, but certainly one of my concerns is the efficiency in allocation of resources in the school system. And I do believe as an educator that education is the greatest investment of a nation and this community. And I recognize the quality of education that is provided because the great effort of our teachers. But I have some concern regarding the compensation that certain administrators have and have received in this school district. And this, to support my view, there was a report coming from Chicago Tribune last year. This is a report based on information generated from the School Board of Education that shows the accelerated increase in compensation for superintendents in Illinois. They indicated that just last year, the compensation grew at close to 10 times faster than the average compensation of workers in the state of Illinois. So that certainly creates a gap, and that creates a tension because educators are seeing that they have been asked to work harder with less and less resources, and yet they see some superintendents getting higher and higher compensation. So I think there has to be a point where we have to get a compromise and make a close consideration of those compensations and actually put them in closer connection with the actual quality and the results of the school district and the size of the school district. Because it doesn't seem to be fair that compensation is not connected to those factors.
Okay, I'm not gonna have to answer their salary compensation tonight. This is a school's board. The superintendent's salary is determined on a contractual basis with the school board. The school board being the elected officials from each district. So I would ask if you have a specific question about some administrative salary that you take into the school board.
But do you think it's fair to
I'm not going to answer somebody's salary. I'm not going to tell you what my salary is.
That's a good question.
But I'm sorry, but I don't think this board is not about what they're being paid.
Are you sure?
Yes, it's about the school's success. Thank you.
My name is Seymour Schwartz. I am on the board of directors of Skokie Voice. My comment and question has nothing to do with that affiliation, but is purely my own. I have a comment and a question, both unrelated to each other. Both of the questions I believe Skokie Voice received from the community in advance dealt with school consolidation. Most political scientists in the country, of which I was for 37 years before I retired, are almost in unanimous agreement that this country has way too many local governments. The state of Illinois, by far, has the most local governments of any state in the Union, in which Cook County is its major contributor. Most of those local governments are school districts. You can correct me no more than me on this. Last I read, it was about 52,000 governing school districts in this country. Nobody would expect you to take a position that would more than likely mean the loss of your jobs. But without going into the details, political scientists have many, many reasons that we certainly didn't hear tonight why there needs to be consolidation of local governments. End of my statement. My question is more particular to Superintendent Shepard. And I'm very curious about this event. The other day, the Village of Skokie's Board of Trustees unanimously voted down what is euphemistically called the road diet, narrowing Open Street, building up, rebuilding the downtown Skokie to revitalize it. Your school district lies in that area, or I say lies in that area. Never got there one, probably. You curiously supported that road diet program, a program which was pushed by a very small minority of business owners in downtown Skokie. I think you mentioned in the press that you were always concerned with school safety and so forth, of which I think we heard earlier you say how safe your school was. The proposal for redoing downtown Skokie included a great reliance on TIF funds from which money would have been allocated for your own school in a time of resource deficiencies. I'm curious if you asked your own PTA whose parents lived in that area would be most impacted by a road diet before you supported that, and if you asked any members of the community who have been part of the school district much longer than you because you're a newcomer, before you recommended that support.
Sure. I appreciate the question, and the answer simply is yes. Discussed in informal conversations that I've had with internal stakeholders, so this would be the teachers and the folks who actually work in the district, and external stakeholders, PTA organizations. I know we discussed it there. We've discussed it at our foundation board, Fund 69. Talked about it for months. When it first was proposed and we did the sample road diet, we immediately reached out to both the villages of Skokie and Morton Grove to talk about student safety specifically, to talk about what types of police presence could be there. Safety was our primary concern during those release times, especially since it was the spring of the year and we anticipated more students on foot. At that point, we were talking about the road diet on a regular basis with virtually everyone. It was not something that as a district we kept quiet. Certainly it was not my personal approach to supporting the road diet initiative. This is something as a district conceptually we supported, not specifically the road diet. That was not the be-all, end-all. That's beyond our purview as an education entity to decide the merits of that program. What we supported was the rebuilding of downtown and the revitalization of downtown. This is something that we support for the reasons you just stated, in terms of increased tax revenues and something we talked about this evening, increased property values. That alleviates the burden on the homeowner at the time. So we do support any effort to rebuild downtown.
So do I understand that you supported revitalization of downtown and not just
When we're talking about small school districts in the state of Illinois, sometimes we're talking about 40 students in a district. We're talking about 50 students in a district. And actually, I come from a little tiny town in central Illinois called Shanola, and I know exactly what these districts are like. You know, the secretary puts the food in, warms up the food and gives it to the children, and the teachers and everybody eats together. So when we're talking about a small district, we're not even talking about any of these districts. When the state of Illinois is talking about those small districts, a lot of times they're talking about school districts that are 20, 30, 40, 50 students in the entire district. Thank you.
In the opening part of this meeting, I was listening intently to all these people giving reports about the racial diversity, the ethnic diversity, the language diversity, the high numbers of special education students, the high numbers of students from families living under the poverty level, the number of students on free lunches. I can't think of all the other kinds of differences and diversities, and it wasn't just 68 languages, and it wasn't just small numbers. I mean, these were really big numbers that we're talking about. And then I turned around and I looked at you, and you don't look like those kids. I mean, this group does not at all look like the kids that these people are educating. And I'm wondering if any of you go into the schools and see the diversity that is really there.
Well, sir,
here's my question.
I think you're looking, these are statistical information that any school can provide you. So if you have a specific question, we're going to get to read.
I have two questions. One, and this I don't expect an answer because it's directed to Skokie Voice, but it's related to what I said. Why is it that this group doesn't look like the kids in school? And secondly, my question to the school people is, earlier in the meeting there was talk about NTDSE, the Niles Township District for Special Ed, and the ELL Parent Center, the English Language Learner Center. Those are two entities in the community that some districts are involved with, other districts aren't. Some districts are considering pulling out, some districts aren't. My question to you is, if you're in those programs, why? And if you're not, why not?
I'll start with the Skokie Voice one because I'm not liking where you're leading, but I'm going to tell you. We promote this event through our website, through our email database, which you're welcome to sign up, through signs at NGOs and CVS. The school districts had it up on their signs. The park district had it up on their electronic signs. It's on all the schools' websites. People ask one out. I cannot stand outside with a cardboard and push people in here. I see a lot of racial diversity in this room, and I'm going to leave it at that. If you want to talk more about Skokie Voice, I'm glad to talk to you after the meeting. What's that?
The schools don't have the option of just putting out signs and asking people to come. They have to deal with it. I'm asking why Skokie Voice isn't making a bigger effort to diversify the group. But
okay, we'll get into that. If your question on what I go is why are some in NTDSE and why, some are cooperative and some aren't, let some of the superintendents answer that.
Fair reason both. We reap tremendous benefits from being part of NTDSE, not only for our students who attend the Julia Loy Center, but also for those services that the cooperative can provide us when we have students that have needs that we only have 1 or 2 students. We have 2 vision impaired children in our building. It would never make sense for us to hire a teacher for them. But through the cooperative, we can receive those types of services and support those children within their own school. The ELL Parent Center, our community, our parents, and I think all of us across the township, whether they're a part of the center or not, their parents and their community members are benefiting from the center. It's an incredibly inclusive place. I've had the joy of working with Randy Tagg as the superintendent liaisons to the center. Again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record. Please stop by and visit the center. It's an exciting place. It's busy. You see people from all over the world, and the services that are being and stay in that little tiny space. So who would have thought? But the need is there, and that's a great example of how, as superintendents, we try to work together to benefit not only the students in our communities, but also the parents and the grandparents, and hopefully people are taking advantage of that, and we're still working hard to get the word out.
And if you ever want to come to a Skokie Boys Board meeting to see what you'd like to see, they are open to everyone, and you can see all of our backgrounds and stuff on our website. Thank you. Next.
I just want to, is there any other superintendent that does or doesn't belong? And can you tell us why?
You know, I've always lived by the motto that it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. So I'm going to go through with something here because there's a comment that you made that I cannot let go. And that's when, you know, when you're looking around this room, and when we're talking about the parents that are having economic problems, parents that have students that have special education needs, make no mistake. When you look around this room, these are the faces that we're seeing. The people who are having economic problems in Skokie is not limited to a race or one group of people. Everybody's having problems. When you're looking at students that have special needs, and we're talking about special education, these are the faces that we're looking at. It is not restricted to just one or two groups of people. It is everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
No other superintendents?
We're going to move on, sir. Next question, please.
I didn't give my name. My name is Angelo Militello. I live in Skokie. For that man who was complaining about taxes, I've lived here 12 years. My taxes have doubled, but that's the price you pay for having good schools.
That's correct. Thank you.
I've lived in Skokie almost my whole life. I went to high school in District 219. My kids are now at Madison School, and I now teach in District 219, which I'm very proud of. I have two questions. One is directly for Dr. Shepard. A question was posed to the panel earlier before the session was opened, in which the schools were asked how they differentiate instruction to reach all levels of learners. And I think you were one of the only elementary school districts that did not get to respond. And living in 69, I'm very curious to hear your response.
Thank you. So, and I appreciate you breaking it down, but I did want to jump in anyway. So we have taken a different approach than many of the other elementary districts here in Skokie when it comes to differentiating instruction. Many of the other schools, as you've heard them talk about their programming, it's a pull-out model. So pull out for gifted education, pull out for EL services when that warrants, and sometimes pull out for special education services sometimes. Please understand that I'm generalizing in order to create a concept, a paradigm. Our paradigm when it comes to differentiation is not so much of a pull-out model, but a push-in model. And because of our program restructuring last year, and due in large part because of the financial considerations, through our program restructuring, we've pushed the differentiation model pretty much to its limit. And so our attempt is to push in as many of these services as we can. So when we talk about differentiation for students, it sounds simple, but it's really quite complicated. Because if I was to tell you that we're differentiating for students, you'd ask me, well, what does that mean? And we could talk about content. We could talk about the content that we deliver to students and their ability. We could talk about differentiating assessments. So these would be the ways that we test kids or assess them on their progress towards goals. We could talk about how we differentiate based on how we deliver the instruction for students. We could talk about how we small group kids and then regroup kids as often as we can in order to meet their needs on a regular basis. And so what I said last year as we were going through the process is that research is clear on this. Research is clear that to make any sort of systemic change, Michael Fullen, who's the change expert, says that systemic change in any organization, not just education, takes between 5 and 7 years. So we're taking the 5 to 7 year approach that we're going to have this in our wheelhouse in a way that we all sort of envision. So our process then involves a series of steps that we're taking so that we can make progress towards our goal. Certainly we knew have the ability to teach literacy at the same time, which means that we can regroup from one classroom to another classroom. And it's kind of exciting when we think about the future and potential for kids to be able to do this. We also have some common planning time built in with our math schedule, and we're hoping to build on that in the future. This is a pretty new model for us. This is a paradigm shift in a pretty substantial way. Certainly, I'm not up here saying that what we've done in the past is wrong. And I'm not saying that what the other school districts are doing is wrong. I'm saying that we're in a different place, in large part because of what we went through last year in construction. But we felt like this was a paradigm that would work for us, and so we worked hard to provide some professional development to some of our teachers. We spent a lot of time planning for it so we could deploy it this year for kids. And so far, our early data is showing that we have done well. The question that was raised around differentiated instruction was specific to gifted ed and close the achievement gap. And so my first response was to go to the data. The data in District 69 shows that we have not lost ground with our gifted ed students. We have not lost ground with any of our students. We have been able to continue moving towards closing that gap. So thank you for re-raising the question.
I need to say something. The big district on the east side of Skokie doesn't allow either. We don't have a gifted specialist, and our results show that all of our students are accelerating in their learning by all the measures that we use. We've been differentiating now for probably 3 good years. We've actually had Carol Tomlinson into our district working with us, and it is the engine that's driving our instructional program.
Thank you. My second question is a more general question. Working at Niles West as an employee of District 219, I know that no matter what school a kid goes to, they will have every opportunity that every kid that any other school will have. And that's something that as a parent, I know I can live anywhere in Skokie and my kid going to District 219 will have the same opportunities. District 219 is alive, it's thriving, and I'm very proud that my kids will go there. I don't have any desire or I have no regrets about living in Skokie. I want my kids to go to District 219 because of the opportunities there. My question is, if a consolidation were to happen across the elementary school, will there be consolidation with curriculum, with programs, with opportunities, and such, so that no matter where I live in Skokie, my friends' kids who live in a different district than mine, will my kids have the same opportunities as they will if consolidation were to happen?
So because consolidation, I'll go ahead and jump back in if that's all right, because I don't want to dominate, but because consolidation is a voter issue and not a superintendent issue, it's beyond any of our ability to make that decision. I think I would like to capitalize again this evening on the so many partnerships that we try to establish as elementary districts. Specifically, the one that came to mind when you asked the curriculum question is the Niles Township Curriculum Coordinators Council, TCCC, which is again either the superintendents or the curriculum coordinators who meet on a regular basis to discuss exactly that curriculum that allows all students to be proficient and hopefully successful when they enter District 219.
I still am not clear. In unified districts, does there tend to be the same opportunities for every student rather than having different programs in different schools?
I'm the superintendent in charge of the Niles Township Curriculum Council, and
I just want to clarify, I'm not just talking about curriculum, I'm talking about everything.
I understand. I'm gonna expand as I go. When we're looking at everything that happens in our township, it really transcends whether we're consolidated or we're not, whether we're a small district or a big district. That and I don't have a crystal ball that would say if we consolidate, this is what it would look like. But I can say just from the past history, with the articulation that goes on between all of our teachers at grade levels and at department levels, where our principals all get together, our superintendents all get together once a month. All of these organizations would exist, or all these people exist, whether we're in consolidation or not. So I would see no reason why, if we consolidated, why these same things wouldn't continue on. The education and the advantages and the programs that we have, I would say is not a matter of consolidation, because they're here and they will continue.
Thank you, by the way, for coming tonight. I appreciate it. I am a resident. My name is Noshina Rahman, and I'm a resident of District 68. So my kids feed into Nelson. I grew up in this district, and I left for about 20 years, and I came back about 3 years ago, and it was completely different. I visited, but one thing that I noticed, and I think many people here noticed, is how diverse Skokie has gotten in the 30 years or so, the last 30 years. Where I don't see diversity is on the teaching staff. I see it everywhere. I go shopping, I see it. I certainly see it. In fact, District 68 and now Central are both minority white now. It's under 50% white students. But your teachers, and I think I'm seeing incremental steps in the high school district. I feel anecdotally that I'm seeing some changes. I'm meeting teachers that are of color. What concerns me the most is something that happened at a school board meeting in District 68, because diversity is one of the initiatives. It seemed like it was a redefinition of diversity. And I understand, I feel like many people, that we have many different types of diversity. Learning diversity, age diversity. But I think the diversity that I'm talking about is racial ethnic diversity. And I think, Dr. McTague, you said something that really disturbed me. It seemed like it was a redefinition. You started saying, I think you gave me statistics, or gave us statistics about second languages spoken by teachers. Now these are your white teachers who speak second language, and they're self-reported, my understanding is. So it could be a teacher who took 4 years of Spanish, and now they say they speak Spanish. A teacher that went to Israel for a year and thinks that they speak Hebrew, whatever. I don't exactly know how it was. But it seemed like you were saying we are so much more diverse than we look. But I want to know, why is it that our teaching staff isn't getting more diverse? I think Dr. Shepard said, Michael Fullen said 7 to 10 years. Well, we've been getting very, very diverse for the last 30 years. I remember being one of the few kids at Old Orchard that was of color. Well, it's not like that anymore. When my daughter came here from Nashville, she noticed that her teachers were much less diverse than she had ever experienced from kindergarten through 5th grade. I would like to know those two, obviously this is for anybody, but particularly for Dr. McTague. What goals are you setting? In the age of accountability, how are you keeping yourself, or making yourself and your administration responsible and accountable for getting teachers? Because when I go to UIC, I just went last year for the graduation ceremony for the College of Education, it is not that they're not graduating educators of color anymore. Maybe 30 years ago that was true. And it's not because they're not applying, because those are the two things I've heard, that we just can't find quality teachers of color, which is insulting. Secondly, what I hear is they just don't want to come here. And I don't know why they wouldn't want to come here. Because we're diverse, we pay them enough, we have great students, and we have great benefits, and we have great structures. So tell me, what specific goals are you setting, and how are you going to hold yourself and your staff, your administrative staff, accountable?
Yes, actually that is a very timely question. Our board spent 15-20 minutes discussing this issue last evening. And growing a more racially diverse faculty and staff has been a board goal for the last 5 years in District 68. Over that time period, we have made a sizable financial investment in advertising our district and trying to recruit across the country teachers of color. We also have the opportunity through our online application process to screen candidates by racial category if they choose to identify themselves that way. We have been unable to attract a number of teachers of color to our district. We have sent our principals annually to job fairs at schools of education in the Chicago metro area that graduate a diverse student body. We have not had luck attracting teachers of color to District 68, but it is a goal that we continue to pursue every year. We are looking at diversity in ways beyond skin color. We are looking at cultural awareness of our staff and the multilingual strengths that our staff bring to our students. 57% of staff in District 68 are literate in a second language, and this is not just teachers who took 4 years of language at the university level. And we had probably 20 different languages represented last evening on the data that we presented to the board. Languages that represent the ethnic diversity of our students. And we will continue to develop a faculty and staff reflective of our rich diversity in our community, but it is a challenge for us. I don't deny that, and it isn't something that we're avoiding or diminishing in any way.
Thank you.
Well, no, I'm not nice. I do want to thank you for responding to that, but my question wasn't answered. How I understand that you're doing something. You mentioned it before, but in education, we can do the same thing over and over again, and you can tell your teachers. I understand you're working hard and you're doing a lot and you're staying after school, but it's not working. The kids aren't learning, so you've got to do something different. So what I'm asking you is, and you mentioned it, you put ads in and you send people out to recruit. But have you thought of making changes to that because it's not working? I mean, in the last 30 years it hasn't. It's not above 10% yet. And I want, I have one little one coming up in your district. I want you to have teachers of color, and it's not just because they're teachers of color. It's because the staff changes. I've worked as a school teacher, and if you ever work with your equals that are different races, the whole community changes. And Dr. Goddard, you mentioned a community of belonging. It does make a difference to students when they see teachers that get along with each other, different backgrounds, instead of, they can't teach us anything because they don't know how to work together. They have no idea how to work with people that are different from them because they don't have superiors or they're equal. All they have is to work as parents and students. And it's a paternalistic relationship that's got to change. Or those of us who can are not going to have a critical school. We're going to move away.
Well, and it goes beyond, in my opinion, it goes beyond just culture. Kids need role models. We work hard to recruit men to teach in the elementary schools. Predominantly, our schools are filled with wonderful, caring women who work really hard as teachers, but we need more men in the field. And that's tough at our level. At the high school level, a little bit different. A little less than 20 years ago, wink, wink, when I was an undergraduate, I was told, don't think about becoming a superintendent. Superintendents in the state of Illinois are all men. Period, end of story. That was it. I'm proud of the way, sorry guys, I'm proud of the way this group looks tonight. And I'm proud that I had other role models who said that yes, women can step up and women can be leaders. So I think it's even broader, cultural, yes, but male-female representation, people of different orientation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think we're such a multicultural community. Not only should our schools and our teaching staffs reflect that, our boards of education should. We work hard to bring our multicultural parents out and be leaders. Join the PTA. Don't be afraid. Don't sit back and be respectful of the school and not become a part of it. Become a leader, whether it's through PTA or as a member of the Board of Education, because our board should reflect our community too. So that's something that we work hard at, and I think it's just a little bit broader than just cultural diversity or racial diversity.
Thank you. We'll take two more questions.
More questions?
Questions are going to be fast.
My name is Mario Burfon. I have 2 kids, 5 and 7 years old. My
do you guys have any program in place or planning to put a program in place to sort of like educate the educators? While the teachers are in the classroom, they can pick on signs of behaviors of the kids who are sort of like not normal. Because what I'm seeing is if teachers don't pick that in the class, those kids then go under the radar. And oftentimes their behavior will treat it as, well, get punished for it, get time out for it.
I think what you're asking that is, are the teachers trained enough to spot children that may not have specific special ed problems, but maybe in the middle school that are maybe functioning enough, but may have certain key things that will sink?
Yes.
And all of our school districts have different programs. In our school, it's called the STARS program. And it's what they meet once a week. And if a teacher even has an inkling that something doesn't seem quite right, the teacher brings this student to our STARS team. And then the STARS team, made up of the social worker, the psychologist, the special ed teachers, will then go observe and watch a child and make a recommendation. So yes, and we have vehicles within all of our schools for the teachers to be able to get more information and to be able to identify children.
Obviously, as a parent, if you think there may be signs, you can go to the school, even if you're not sure. I'll give you an example. My oldest son had a very small, specific issue, a cognitive, issue with certain words that when he was reading that weren't keying in. I would have never spotted it. The school spotted it. But if you have a specific issue, you can take it for sure to the schools and make them aware.
I'd just like to say we bring in clinical experts to train our teachers for our arrangements.
So what my understanding is, once the STARS team or experts figure it out, and there's a path to provide services and resources, which I think is all IEP. Once IEP is done, throughout the year, as people, parents, who have kids with disabilities, often, not think about those behavioral challenges because it's the use of it. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is incorporate some visual aids things into the classrooms so that if any behavioral instance happens that will remind the teachers, hey, this kid had this issue, that their patience and tolerance will be high to deal with them. So I guess what I'm trying to ask, maybe incorporating that sort of into the classroom. I understand diagnosing and detecting, you are working on it, but as a long term, have those visual aids and things that in the classroom.
Well, in addition to the things that I mentioned, special education and classroom teachers don't just shut their door in their little islands anymore. Our special education teachers are in the classroom working hand in hand with the teachers. So they're seeing on a daily basis what's going on with a certain student. So they don't necessarily rely on the classroom teacher to say, well, this is what's going on, because the classroom teachers are in those, the special education teachers are in those classrooms observing and working with those children and other children who might have problems.
And the second question is, I don't know if you can answer. It's just my observation. Over the years I've seen there are some teachers who are bright, very engaging with the children. They challenge the kids to excel. But then a year later, you find a teacher in a different classroom completely disconnected, not exciting the kids, not engaging the kids. So I guess this observation leads to any type of performance measurement. I don't know, the school board does it, the district does it, or maybe beyond your hands, maybe at the state level. Just the question is something.
This is the question basically, because teachers are underperforming, what can you do about it? Let's get into tenure or not.
I think the misconception that tenured teachers cannot be dismissed is wrong. If there are teachers in a system that are underperforming and they're not being under a remediation plan or dismissed, then that administration is not requires a process. But the process is very clear, and you follow it, and you can get to the end if you need to, because ultimately, the needs of children need to come before the needs of adults. I am proud to say that every year our Board of Education has released tenured teachers every single year that I've been superintendent. That is not an easy road to walk down, but it is about making sure an adult has an opportunity to remediate deficiencies, to be fair in that process, and then to continue to move forward when that is not happening. And so, the whole thing about tenure, you can't remove a teacher, you can. But it does require a diligent approach and an administration and Board of Education that is willing to take on very, very difficult cases. And to do it ethically and give adults the chance to remediate. But it can happen and it does happen.
It's not an easy process.
Easy, difficult, it's a process. Most things in life are a process. I don't think the label is easy or difficult, it just is.
All right. Well, thank you for all of you guys for coming in here tonight. So we're ready for it. Thank you.
All right. Last question.
So basically, I've been a president of Skokie for a long time, with all school districts, and I'm proud that now I get to actually work. My current job is in the north suburbs, including Skokie, and it focuses on immigrant integration and student engagement. So a lot of things you guys have already talked about, like participation in PTAs. I'm also a member of Latinos in Skokie, and so one of my main focus areas would be on, I think we all know, communities and schools thrive when the two are working in close partnerships. I think today's forum is a really good example of that. So my question is, what would you like to see from other community organizations like Latinos in Skokie, grassroots, whether they're ethnic-based, whatever it might be, what would you like to see from them in terms of partnering with schools?
Come to the schools. Come inside and help us provide opportunities where every community feels welcomed and they feel that they can have a connection. And your group and other groups are doing a great job at that. One of the things that District 219 is our Futuro Latino and our Cafecitos. What is it? It's Spanish-speaking opportunities for parents to connect with Spanish-speaking employees and not just teachers. Something as simple as coffee in the morning creates great opportunities and then therefore opportunities for that child. Because ultimately we know that when parents are partners in their child's education, they do better academically, they graduate and go on to college, they get better grades, they earn more credits. So,
Thank you. Before I have Lisa close the evening for Skokie Voice, Dr. Gada would like to make a quick comment.
Well, thanks. We do meet monthly, and we know one another, and we were excited about tonight's opportunity. And I just wanted to say that on behalf of the superintendents here tonight, thank you very much, Skokie Voice, for giving us a forum to highlight the work that's happening in your schools. They're not our schools; they're your schools. And it was a great opportunity tonight to start that dialogue. There really is so much to be proud of here. We talked about the great teachers and the great facilities, the academic rigor, the comprehensive programming, the student diversity. But I think the best way to describe how Skokie feels about Skokie is the fact that families keep coming back to live here. Our students graduate and they come back and they live and get married and have kids that go to our schools in Skokie. I cannot tell you the number of students that go to my schools whose parents say, I graduated from Niles East, I graduated from Niles North, and my mother graduated, and my grandmother. That is the litmus test. And we have to make sure that we continue to have a community where people want to come back after they go off and get educated and get jobs. Guess what? They choose to come back and live in Niles Township and live in Skokie. That is what's so exciting for us. And that is why we feel so good about the work that's happening. Thanks so much for having us here today, Skokie Voice.
And I'd like to throw in one more tag to this. I'm just speaking for my district. 5 of my Board of Education members are here, and I know for several of the other districts, you all are here as well. And I
and just to go on what Dr. Gatta said, I don't want to embarrass you, Barry, but my husband Barry's back here, and he attended Devonshire School, Lord Junior High School, and we just went to his 40th Niles North reunion a couple of weeks ago. And I have to tell you, I'm much younger, of course, but it was so cool because what they did, I thought this was kind of, interesting. They called all the kids from Devonshire, the kids, the old adults, maybe they were kids, and they took a Devonshire photo, and then they took a Jane Stenson photo, they took a Highland and the Old Orchard, the whole thing. It was so cool, and it's exactly as Dr. Gatta said. We live in the house Barry grew up in. You live here because the schools are great schools, and we're not moving away. And the reason Skokie Voice is here and everyone's out because we care about this community. We want it to be the best community on the North Shore. And I think we're off to a very good start. We're continuing building on what we already have. So I just want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I think we can all agree that we've learned valuable information from our panel of superintendents, and we can walk out of here tonight knowing that our kids in Skokie, no matter what school they go to, they're in great hands. And just